Okay, thank you so much. Janice McPhillips has done a lot of back work on this workshop, getting it ready, as has Liza McPherson, our tech wizard, and everyone here at the farm getting ready for a garlic presentation, which in a COVID year is online. So thank you for joining us today and supporting our effort, as Janice said, to teach about organic growing, how to do it sustainably with regenerative practices, and to grow lots of produce that we donate and that we sell. We will have seed garlic available for all you enthusiastic garlic planters next Thursday. Store.hollyhillfarm.org. We'll repeat that several times. That's our online shopping platform that appears on Thursday mornings, weekly, 10 a.m. So, without much further ado, we are delighted to have a veteran garlic planter and his cohort, Dave and Don, who are experienced and award-winning garlic planters. Please take it away. We'll have Q&A after certain sections. Thanks for joining and helping with the farm. Happy garlic planting. Dave and Don, thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Before I get started, we have another special person we'd like to welcome who's been an assistant, and I'll let Don do that.
Great. Thank you, Dave. So we have JP Knapp, who's also on the line here. JP lives in Hull here, and he is being homeschooled, and he's going to be Dave and my junior gardener. So when we go to do the bed at Holly Hill, he's going to help us out. And this is part of a project that I am helping him with. And he is going to be going through the whole process that you're all going to see here today. And then hopefully next fall, end of next summer, shall I say, that if we do have a Marshfield Fair, we can enter his garlic into the kids competition.
Bravo. Welcome, JP.
Welcome, JP.
Appreciate that. There he is. So just wanted to start this with just a little bit of history as to how I got started in garlic world. And it's become a bit of a passion for both Don and myself. And it's a hobby, it's an art form. It's all those things wrapped into one, and it's really a lot of fun. So about 15 years ago, I grew up in Amish country in Pennsylvania, and about 15 years ago, I went to visit my mom, and she always had a garden. Everybody who lives in Pennsylvania, Amish country, had a garden. And so I was checking out her garden, and I saw all this garlic with all this oniony looking stuff growing. I'm like, what's that? She goes, oh, that's garlic. That's been growing for years. I got that in 1962 from an Italian guy who made spaghetti sauce in the town that I was from, and sold it. And he grew his own garlic for it. And I immediately thought, in those days I was, thinking about the Monsantos of the world, and everybody's messing with our food. And I said, Ma, that's really important. What you have there is something special. It's never been touched by all these people that want to alter our food source. So, I had a garden back here in Hull, and I decided I'm going to take some of that garlic and bring it back here. And I read about how to plant it, and I planted it in an organized fashion, and it came up like crazy. And I had really good success with it. So I was really proud of that. And I've got a lot of people in the neighborhood with garlic beds, probably 20 people around here who I started with that same garlic. And I also took it over to Holly Hill and talked to the folks over there about how I thought this was really important because it's really, truly an heirloom product. And so we started growing it over there and started this class. Not too long after that, my wife and I do boating trips in southern France through wine country. We rent a boat and we cruise the canals and stuff. And the one year we went and we decided to go a week early, and we went up into the Pyrenees Mountains just north of Toulouse area. And of course, when you go to these French villages and stuff, you always look for their local markets, and you go to that. And sure enough, we go to the market, and there's all this amazing garlic piled up all over the place. It's beautiful, this large pink garlic. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So where we were staying at this incredible chalet, there was two gentlemen who ran the place. one was a sommelier, a wine person. The other one was a chef. His partner was a chef. So I asked him that night, and he was cooking dinner for us. I said, "What's the story with all that garlic at the market?" And he got so excited. His eyes got real big, as started waving his arms around. And he said, "That is the heartbeat of France. And it's the Rose of Lautrec, the Pink Lady, it's called. And it's rated France's #1 garlic for years." And I thought this was incredible. So I went back to the market the next day, and I grabbed 3 beautiful bulbs from one of the farmers there, and I smuggled it back to the States. And I started growing it. And of course, the first year I only had X amount of plants, and then I saved them and I planted them. And now I grow at least 100 heads of this French garlic every year. And it's pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, so that's just a quick story about, my passion for garlic. And it's really just so much fun to get into. So I hope you all, do the same. So let me go on here. So that's the Pink Lady right there. Just fantastic stuff. And actually, I think you can find this online and learn about it. That's the area of France, southern France, between Montpellier and Toulouse, up in the mountains there, where I got that garlic. So John and I started growing garlic, and we have a little friendly competition every year at the Marshfield Fair. Some years he wins it, some years I win it. This year there was no Marshfield Fair, but Don's garlic was out of this world, and I actually carved him a trophy. gave him the trophy this year. He deserved it. There's some pictures of it coming up, but so there's Don's won the ribbon that year. It's really just a lot of fun. And there's Don got second place that year. Oh. Sorry. All right. So our first section is about preparing the soil. It's super important because the soil is, I think it's the most important part of growing garlic. I think if you have proper soil, you're going to have some success. You're going to have a lot of success. And the first years I was growing garlic, I didn't have a raised bed that I highly recommend. But now, if you do something as simple as this, just get some 2x12 planks from Lowe's or Hingham Lumber or wherever. They'll cut it to whatever size you want. So if you pick a spot in your yard that you want to have a garden, measure it out, go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, and just pick 2x12 planks and say, cut these to this length and screw them together. It's as simple as that. Sit it down and fill it up with beautiful soil. So this is, Don did this last week. I'll let him elaborate a little more on the soil.
Yeah, so this, so last week I had taken some of the seaweed that we'll be going through in just a bit that I collected off the beach. I put it on the top of the soil and let it dry for about 3 weeks. So it became a little more crispy, and then turned it into the soil. So I've been doing that for years and years. So as you can see, it really creates some nice soil, and especially having a raised bed, you really want soil that's loose. It'll definitely make your garlic grow bigger and stronger.
You can see some of the seaweed. There's several ways. There's no real rule about how to put seaweed in your garden, but seaweed is incredibly powerful. It has like 10 times more minerals than any other kind of fertilizer. It's readily available right here in Hull. In fact, we've got some pictures of it in a minute. This is actually our bed over at Holly Hill Farm. It's prepared and ready to accept our garlic. John comes over and gives us a nice boost of compost every year, and we fill that raised bed right up to the top, so the roots of the garlic that grow straight down can have some nice nutrition to grab onto. This I took this morning when I was walking my dogs on the beach. So if any of you want some seaweed, come to the end of W Street in Hull. You can drive right up to the end, right up to the ocean, and this is all out there right now, and it'll be there for a little bit. It comes and goes, of course, but it's nice and fresh. There's a mixture of different types of seaweed in there. It's just kind of littered all over the place. Come and take as much as you want so we can have a sandbag. So there's several different types of seaweed. This is a kelp. This is my favorite type of seaweed. There's some other stuff that really doesn't break down as fast. This stuff is pretty good, but I prefer to chop it up a bit. This stuff, it's like hair. This breaks down in like 3 years or something. It's like steel wool when it dries. So I'd stay away from this stuff. I think this is what the pirates used to wash their dishes.
Dave, I'd like to add something to that.
Sure.
Although I agree with Dave as far as it does take 2 to 3 years for it to totally break down in the soil. But I have to say, a couple years where it was plentiful on the beach and I put it into the garden and mixed it in, there were a couple of my garlic bulbs that the root systems just like attached to it. And like when I pulled it up, it was like this big, massive root system with all of the seaweed. And I have to tell you, I swear that those garlic bulbs, and it happened to like 3 of them that year, were about 20% bigger than the ones next to it.
Wow. So maybe you could gather this stuff.
If you're showing us something, we can't see it, or I can't see it. If you're showing us the seaweed, we're not seeing. All I'm seeing is your head.
Can everybody else see the seaweed?
I can.
I can.
I can.
I can see it.
I can see it.
Good picture of seaweed.
I can see it.
No head.
I can see it. There might be some setting that you need. Are you on a laptop or an iPad or a phone?
I'm on an iPad.
So what should have happened, he's had a couple pictures, many pictures flash by, including his blue ribbon from the Marshfield Fair, but he did a screen share. Have you ever been on a Zoom before where you?
I do Zoom a lot, but
there should be, maybe leave the meeting and come back in, click on the link again, come back in, because you should be able to see his pictures. Oh, Susie says there's a view option. Oh, yeah, up the top. If you go next to the top of your screen, there's some view options. Mine is on side-by-side mode. All right, anyway, continue, Dave. Hopefully Donna can.
All right.
If not, Donna, this is
figure
being
that out.
recorded, and you'll be, or Dave can share his slides with you. Sorry for the technical glitch. Anybody else having troubles while we're on a pause here?
All right. So moving on.
Yes, I'm going to include Janice an email from a
I think he's has bad reception in the barn out there. But Johnny, if you can hear us, just call, maybe give Janice a call, and she can send the link out to whoever that is. Anyway, so recently I found this really awesome meat cleaver, and when I bring the seaweed back into my garden, I just lay a piece of wood down and I chop it up. You don't have to do this, but to me, it's kind of therapeutic, to be honest with you. It's kind of fun. So I think it helps spread it around your garden a little bit more. And there's really no science that I know of as to when and how you can turn it into the soil. I like spreading it on top as well as turning it into the soil. So you use it as a mulch. It helps keep the weeds down and keeps the water in. So it keeps moisture in. And so any way you use seaweed is good. So come over here to Hull and get some. There's a Don's little bucket of seaweed before he put it on his garden the other day. He's preparing his soil with seaweed in it before he plants.
And then I'll put some on top later on too, once it's planted.
So does anybody have any questions about soil prep before we go on to the planting?
What would be your recommendation for the sort of height of a raised bed for this type of thing?
Well, the roots of the garlic grow straight down. So I'm using 2 by 12 planks that are actually more like 11 and a half. And
So roughly a foot.
yeah.
Okay.
And I will fluff up the soil underneath that. If you're doing it on grass or something, just turn that grass over or something, and then fill that bed with some really good soil. You can get compost. I'm not even sure. You guys sell compost over at the farm? Yeah. Okay. So go see Johnny. He'll help you.
Yes.
He'll look you up.
In small amounts, we do.
Okay. Great.
Please
But
contact us at the farm.
you can kind of customize this to whatever space you have available. Put it in a sunny spot. Garlic likes sun, so it'd be a great little thing. I don't really recommend planting it in buckets or planters because garlic likes to go into a dormant stage over the winter, and I don't think you can really get that in a planter. I've seen people do it, but I like mine to be in touch with the ground.
And this
What you'll also want to do when you put your soil into the bed, your raised bed, is pack it really high to the top and maybe even a little bit more if it's a new bed, because once it rains and it gets wet, it's going to like shrink down at least a couple of inches once it packs in. So
okay.
Garlic likes really fluffy type soil, fluffy and nutritious soil, because those roots if your roots have an easy pathway, your bulbs are going to be big.
Yeah. Dave, Eric Eisenhower here. I've always been advised to put the seaweed on at least 2 months before you do your planting so that the rain can scrub the salt away. Otherwise, you get this rather intense salt infiltration to your new seedlings and all that, which can be tough on the plants. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I put mine on in before the plants start growing, in the winter. I don't really spread it around in the spring. So I let it kind of sit there all winter. I have probably hosed it down, and I bring it back and throw it in a pile and just squirt a hose at it. But I don't really think you have to. But I agree that if if the little tiny little plantlets are coming up and they have salt on them, that's probably not a good thing. But so I overwinter my seaweed before they start growing.
I mean, here in Cohasset, I always gathered my seaweed in the fall and put it on around December or so and left it for 4 or 5 months. And come May, it had disappeared. It works down in the soil and all that. So.
yeah, there were these little critters that you'll see like early in the spring. They're like little, I don't even know how to describe them, kind of like centipede type little creatures. They're only about like a half an inch, and you'll see that they're all running through the seaweed and everything, and I think that they're eating it and digesting it.
Good stuff. Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to planting. Always exciting. This is how you should put a.
Dave, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, sure.
There's a couple of questions in the chat, so before you move on.
Okay.
Someone wants to know where to get good soil.
And I wrote in the chat, this is John at Holly Hill Farm, that JF Price in Weymouth has a really good loam and compost mix if you have a brand new start from scratch bed you want to fill. Someone also mentioned Coast of Maine is a bagged product if you're working on a smaller area. They have a good organic soil mixes and composts.
Actually, one of my neighbors bought, I don't know, 20 bags of that Coast of Maine stuff and filled her beds with it and had terrible luck with it because I think you could get some of that and mix it with a lot of other stuff. But if you just use that stuff, I'd beware. I'd mix some more organic type matter in with your beds. It was kind of a disaster.
Yeah, Dave, I agree with that because I've used that actually quite a bit. And I always mix extra stuff into it.
Well, there's a lot of different Coast of Maine mixes. So it's, and every batch, as we know from making batches of compost at the farm or at home, not every batch is the same and not every quality the quality of it may differ from batch to batch. So maybe that's what happened to your friend.
Sure.
Mhm.
One more question to squeeze in. Does the seaweed change the pH in the soil?
I'm sure it does. I don't really do soil tests. I have a few times in the long time ago, but I'm sure it does. Maybe you can answer that better than me, John.
Yeah, we've not done pH tests pre-post seaweed application. I do know that one year, many years ago, the Cohasset beach conservators were cleaning off the beach in Cohasset in the spring, and they brought 18 dump trucks filled with seaweed to the farm, and that was spread directly, without rinsing, directly on the tomatoes that were planted nearby, and they were beautiful. And they did not do any rinsing. And I remember at the time the farmer said, "Yep, no problem." So you would think the salt would be too much for plants, like you said, Eric, but
Well, proof of the pudding's in the eating.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I tell you, garlic is a hungry plant, and it
Good.
really likes all this organic matter. So,
All right, let's proceed, and we'll keep answering questions later on and in the chat room. Go ahead, Dave and Don.
So this is kind of the way you should orient your clove as you plant it. The pointy side goes up. A lot of people just kind of throw them in there like it's a seed or something, but it's really important to point the pointy side up. This is a bulb of garlic that I disassembled just to show you there's different size cloves, and you all know that, but pick the largest ones out. What I do is I go through my garlic. I'll open up a whole bunch of bulbs and just take the largest cloves to plant. I think it's really important. The bigger, the better. Let me show you this. If I can zoom in, you see that that crusty thing on the bottom of this clove? That is kind of like the base of the root system, and it's on the bottom of every head of garlic. So as you break them open, I always go through and I pull these little scabby type things off of the bottom of the clove, just because that's where the roots are going to come out. And if they got to go through this big hard scab, it's going to be a little bit harder. So the easiest path for the roots is best. So just have a look at your cloves and make sure that there's no scabby root ball things on the bottom. Get your cloves ready. If you have different types of garlic, it's important to organize them. I use Frisbees, for my different types. And this is Don's setup.
Yeah. So what I do is I'll take mine. I'll plant like four different types. So I'll just make sure that I have as many cloves as I need, and I'll just plant them 1 or 2 rows at a time so I don't mix them up.
So Don and I both do it differently, with great success. You can see the soil looks beautiful. It's very rich. I just kind of hoe a big trench, and I'll plant like one type of garlic in that row, or maybe 3 rows of one type of garlic. And it's important to label your garlic. As you can see, all the pointy sides up, about 3 inches deep is what I usually do. You don't want to go too deep, and you don't want to go too shallow, otherwise your bulb will be growing on top of the ground. And in a second, Don will show you how he does his. It's really important to label your rows, so you keep everything separate when you harvest it. As you're growing it, you want to know what type of garlic. It's really fun to grow different types of garlic, and you can use them for different dishes as well. There's some spicy garlics, there's some mild garlics.
Hot garlic.
Every time I go to Lowe's, I go by the paint section and I grab a handful of these things, and they're perfect for labeling your rows. Just little paint stirs. Little tip. So Don, you want to take it?
Sure. So when I grew up, my dad grew up on a farm. So he's the one who taught me how to plant. And when we would do our very large vegetable garden that we had growing up, my dad was a electrical engineer, so everything had to be precise. So I'm going to blame all of his issues on my issues on him. But we would measure everything out, put stakes in, put strings so everything was nice and straight. So when I do my garlic, I actually, because I have a raised bed and it's very small, so I want to get as much out of it as I can. So I will actually go in and map it out on grid paper. As you can see, I will write down, which rows are what. And then I put the little dots because I plant them the rows 8 inches apart and the garlic 6 inches apart. So that way I know exactly how many garlic cloves that I need for each row. Yeah, I'm a little anal, but that's the way I do it. And then what I do is I take that and then I take the garden sticks and I will mark out the 8 inches and the 6 inches. And then I will start to, David, go to the next photo. Start to, put in my my little holes and go to the last one. So I'll have all my holes set up and then I'll just go in and drop in my garlic.
Don's raised bed is phenomenal. He made it out of some kind of pre-engineered cement block things, and it's about 2.5 feet deep. So when he fluffs up his soil, it's pretty phenomenal, and he's had amazing success with this deep bed.
Yeah, and I live on a hill on Allerton Hill, so they had to be tall, but it's also great that you don't have to do a lot of bending over.
This is my bed. This was actually before I'd made it a raised bed. I kind of raised it up just by piling the soil up. As you can see, the soil is beautiful. So what I do is, this is actually after it's been planted. So you can see at the end of each row, there's stakes there saying what is in that row. And then what I do after I plant, I spread seaweed on the soil, and then I cover it with leaves. And now this isn't something you really have to do, but it's like a cool little blanket. It also helps keep the weeds down. And this year I'm going to use oak leaves. I've been using maple leaves because that's what I have in my yard, but I heard that oak leaves are really good to use. So I have this thing that sucks leaves up and sucks them into a little grinder and grinds them into a bag. And then I just dump the bag onto the beds. The thing is really useless if you're trying to pick up all the leaves in your yard, but I only use it for this. But you can take a pile of leaves and run them over with the lawnmower if you want, and then shovel them right onto your garden bed. It works pretty good, actually. But so I usually put about 5 or 6 inches of leaves on top of the seaweed that I spread out. And it makes a nice little winter blanket for the beds. Does anybody have any questions about the planting?
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
I feel like we get this question a lot from students
Okay.
when we're doing planting workshops and whatnot. Don't peel the garlic. I don't know that I heard you say that. So,
Oh yeah, great point.
so
Good point. Yeah.
when you're
I
peel
can't
it.
believe I overlooked saying that, but yeah, I thought it was kind of obvious, but
And
you're
one other
right.
thing about your beds, I was noticing you look like you use plain old pine, correct? And did you?
Yes, I don't use any kind of pressure treated stuff. I don't know what's in that. I use pine. It'll last, 5 or 6 years, whatever, and then you got to replace it. But
It
no
looked like
big
you may
deal.
have it looked like you may have treated it. I one time my husband built me a cold frame, and I went online and found a mix of linseed oil and some other natural things. I forget what else was in it, but it basically was a wood preservative, but there was nothing toxic in it. And it's still around, actually. It's at the farm now. And anyway, there are ways that you can extend the life of pine without compromising, putting any chemicals in your soil. All right, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions about planting? Actually, another quick point is that, like, you can go less than 6 inches apart on your planting of your bulbs. I actually do like 4.5 to 5, maybe, just to get more in. The plant grows straight up, and as long as you have good sun, it's going to reach out for the sun. But if you have the room, do the 6 inches.
There's a question in the chat about soaking cloves in fish emulsion, and there was NOFA did a workshop recently where they mentioned, or not was a workshop, maybe it was just an email anyway, where they mentioned some research that had been done about soaking garlic cloves in fish emulsion that I think I sent to you. And
Yeah.
the farm, no one at the farm has ever done that. I don't know if anyone else here has.
I have not.
I haven't done it, but what's coming up and we'll show you, that's the fertilizer that I actually use in the spring and early summer to fertilize the garlic. So I could see that that's probably a good idea if you think about it. It's like, you know, in the old days when the Indians would put a fish head in with the corn, you know, it's kind of like doing the same kind of concept. So why not? I think I'm going to try that.
You do.
And someone's asking about, this is John from Holly Hill Farm. Someone's asking about how far below the surface do you mix in the seaweed? And I said just below the surface. I don't know, you want to talk any more about the depth of seaweed?
Yeah, I just do a full shovelful, you know, so that's what, you know, when you're turning over your garden because you want it deep and the shovel is what, 12 inches or whatever. So I just like go down as far as I can and just like turn it over that way.
Yeah, it's important every year to turn your soil over with a good spade. And if you mix the seaweed in, then, you know, it's going to be down, you know, 8, whatever it is, inches. But I do, you know, we do 2 layers and we mix it into the soil and then we put stuff on top as well in the fall. Another quick point about planting. I'm not ready to plant just yet. I plant really late because right now, all the garlic that you harvested in August and July, it's ready to sprout. It is ready to go. So if you plant it too early, it's going to come up. And it'll still grow, but you know, it's just not the best thing to do. So I kind of watch the weather. And if it looks like, if I see a cold snap coming up and it looks like it's going to stay cold for the winter, that's when I'm going to plant. So sometimes it's mid-November for me because I don't, these days, last year was so mild, you know, you had to wait. Otherwise, your stuff's going to sprout just before winter, and you really don't want that. I think it's a mistake to plant too early.
Dave,
Well, since I'm Dave's counterpart and I tend to counter him, I actually plant mine like the end of October. And yeah, it does come up, and it could, depending upon the weather, and it could be up 2 or 3 inches. But you'll see a photo later that, you know, snow doesn't seem to affect it. You know, put some leaves up on top, and I've never had an issue with it. You know, people have their different styles, so it's just a really tough plant.
Don, I've had plants which sprouted and then come sort of 5-degree weather in January, February. The sprouts have died and the garlic perished because of the cold. So
Wow.
There was no mulch on it though. I didn't mulch it, and the sprouts are just sticking up and got really cold. One of those, you know, the nasty winters we have. So I think later is better.
Yep.
Yeah, I did some reading online about it as well, and the one side I was looking at says if the shoot comes up, it actually acts like a straw, and it draws water from the clove, and it'll kill it. So, you know, I always, you know, when I like mid-November, even later than that. You know, just keep your eye on the weather. You know. See what it's going to do, and have your bed ready to go because you can plant in one day, and in a couple hours you can be done. Any other questions about planting? All right, well, I'm going to move on to growing. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So watching it grow, very exciting. One great thing about garlic is, you know, in the early spring, when everyone else's garden is dead and you're not even thinking about planting, here comes your garlic right through the snow sometimes. And it's you know, in the spring, it loves the cold early weather, and it'll just come right through 6 inches of snow. Like this is like spring snow. You can tell the snow's kind of wet and warm, and doesn't affect it a bit. But it's really exciting. And, you know, I mean, I love gardening, and the earlier I can get started, the better. And garlic gives you that because, you know, I mean, Don, this is your bed. What time of year was this?
Yeah, I would say that this probably was like the third week in March.
Very nice. Yeah, and you can see the seaweed has kind of moved down into the soil, and this is a happy little baby garlic here.
Yeah, so this is what I was speaking to earlier. So like, you know, starting, you know, mid-spring, I'll use the Neptune seaweed and fish emulsion fertilizer, and it's a great fertilizer. And I'll fertilize, not overly fertilize, maybe once every 3 to 4 weeks. And it really just, you know, helps, you know, kick things off. And you'll see some other photos just from what we're looking at there to, you know, what the bed looked like just like 3 weeks later after the first application. Not this photo, but the next one. There you go.
Also,
that's the same bed.
And what time of the year?
So this would have been probably by about a month later. This would have probably been the 3rd or 4th week in April. As you can see, my garden's a mess. There's nothing else is growing.
Somebody's got some feedback going on. All right.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah. Okay, carry on. So this is Don's bed as well, and you can see how perfectly his rows have come up. Really nice picture. This garlic is super healthy and it's ready to take off. I love these pictures.
We call that's the rabbit's view. So if you were a rabbit running through the garden, that's what you'd see.
And by the way, rabbits don't eat garlic. In fact, bugs don't like garlic. And if you plant garlic around, this holds true with onions. I found out I used to get white flies and aphids on my tomatoes until I started planting onions and garlic just randomly within the tomato plants. And I never get any bugs on my tomatoes because they just hate oniony plants.
Every once in a while, there will be one animal that goes out and gets brave and tries to like dig it up, and only digs it up like maybe like a third, and it's like, it's garlic, you know. So nothing really bothers it.
Great stuff. So this is my bed, and as you can see, this stuff is just taken off right now. It's the stalks are really thick at the base down here. Everything is green. Just fantastic. And different types of garlic grow at different times. So my French garlic I smuggled back, it comes up really early before any of the other garlic, and it harvests really early as well. Then we get to the scapes. So these little tendrils come shooting out of your garlic plants, and it actually is a seed pod trying to form and continue its cycle of life. The general rule with these things is when they cross over, they always curl around like this. When they cross over, you cut them off. And I cut them off as close to the leaves as I can. And they're delicious to eat. You can chop them up. You don't eat the little pod on the end. Just the green stalk. If you let them stay on your plant too long, it gets really woody. Now I grow a fair amount of garlic, so I can't eat all these things. So what I do every year is I take them over to Brian over at Brian Houlihan, who owns Bia Restaurant, and he does a weekend special with them. He's done several things, fish special, or he made a what is it? He just made sauces with them. And he enjoys getting it. I give him a big bag full, and his eyes get real big. So this is my bed with all the scapes coming in. You can see them all curling around. You go through and you just cut them all off because these things sap energy from your bulb. Unbelievable. I've left a few go just to experiment, and eventually that stalk straightens out, and it makes these little seeds on the end, but harvesting the bulbs afterwards, they're much smaller. So as soon as these things cross over, and these things are prime right now to be cut because they curl around, you cut them off.
And you want to cut them maybe about 4 inches above the last leaf.
Well, I like to get them down as close as possible. So I don't really know. Maybe it's just my peace of mind. I like to get as much out of there as I can. John, do you know anything about that? How far down to cut these things?
No, I've cut them both close to the to where it's coming out of the garlic, as well as well up on the garlic. It really does depend on how much scape you'd like. It's certainly stiffer closer to the plant than it is.
That's true.
That's what I was going to say. Basically, if it bends and it's soft, then it's going to be good to eat. So you sort of cut it at the point where it's soft and tender and delicious.
No, Don does other things with them.
So I tried doing a couple recipes, and personally for me, they were just a bit strong, and maybe the recipes, I used the wrong recipes. So I'll actually take them and I'll create like a little art form out of it. So I will actually put them in water, and they will still continue to grow for another 6 weeks, and they won't die or anything. It's pretty cool. They'll grow up straight, and so it's kind of funky. It's kind of a fun thing to have, on your table outside as a talking piece.
Great stuff. I understand that you can also, if you're desperate for some garlic and whatever you're cooking, you can go out and you can clip a couple of leaves, and there'll be garlic flavor in just the leaves as well.
Absolutely.
So if you let your scape go, this is what that little white thing on the end will turn into. You can see in these pictures the balls start to form, and then these fall off, and naturally they would just grow. But if you plant one of these things, you're not going to get a real garlic bulb. It's going to be a bulb, but it's going to be kind of small. So I wouldn't really plant these in your garden. It probably takes a couple of years to have a full size. You really got to plant a clove to get a full size bulb.
So Dave,
but if you want to do something fun, just to test them, because I did that one year, and I planted like 5 or 6 of them, and it was really cute because it was a full garlic bulb, but it was only like an inch wide. But it's kind of fun to experiment.
I don't know if you can eat these or not. I suppose you could.
Those are true seeds. A garlic clove is basically a result. It's a form of propagation, but it's not a true seed that results from pollination. So those bulbils that is in the picture there, that's from pollination. That's a true seed.
Bulbils. I'm going to use that.
Bubils. So I have a couple resources I was going to put into the chat. One is an interesting article that I read recently about the size of the clove that you plant if you are reusing your own cloves as opposed to purchasing seed garlic. And the other is a recipe that I personally love. I heard you say, Don, you thought it was a little too spicy, but I am a big fan of garlic scape pesto. So I'll put those resources in the chat, and then people can save the chat.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's actually what I did make. It was just a little strong for me personally.
So after you cut your scapes, it's go time, and the stuff starts to really taking off. And as you can see, people come into my garden all the time and says, "Oh, what kind of corn are you growing?" I'm like, "That's not corn, that's garlic." But it just gets wild after that. As soon as you cut those things off, it's really cranking. Garlic loves the sun. This is just a picture of one of my little garden beds and just the relationship of my garlic versus other things. It plays well with others. All right, so
Dave, what we should point out there, if you just go back one, is that garlic harvests early, first or second week in July, and so then you have that whole bed. So that allows you to go in and plant other things. So while everything else in the garden is growing, you're going to have this blank space, palette that you can go in and start to plant other things.
I have actually a picture later on in the presentation that I took this morning in my garden in that bed, and you'll be surprised how much stuff is going on out there right now. So
I'll actually go in and plant some tomatoes that obviously will ripen late in my space.
All right. So our next, anybody got any questions at this point? Okay. So it's all different garlics harvested at different times, but it's pretty early in the summer. My French stuff will be like early July, before everything else. And that opened up that bed. But this is just a picture showing of what the garlic starts to look like. And it's good to stop watering your garlic. I mean, sometimes we don't have control of that if it's going to rain, but if you like the 2 weeks before you harvest, just stop watering it. And as you can see, the plants look like they're dying, which they kind of are. And harvesting too early is better than too late. I mentioned before, and I'll show you why shortly. You can see the leaves are brown. It starts on the bottom of the plant. These leaves will die off first, and it works its way up. My general rule is when half of the plant to 3/4 is dead looking, you got to harvest. But if you're growing, let's say, 50 bulbs, go out and dig one up and see what it looks like. And if it looks like it's ready, then you're ready to harvest. You can see these plants are more than half dead, and it's really important, the paper that wraps around the bulb, that remain intact.
Dave, can I interrupt?
Sure.
A while ago, there was a question in the chat about watering, and you talked about not watering at the very end there of the garlic's life, so that if you harvest in early to mid-July, depending on the variety of garlic, people may want to know how much water do you add in the spring.
Yeah.
Say tomatoes, for example, need, what is it, an inch of water a week a tomato needs, or something like that?
I would say garlic needs about half of that. And covering my beds with seaweed and leaves really helps keep what moisture it does have, keeps it in there. And the roots grow straight down, so they're reaching down for that deep soil that is generally more moist than a root system that would be growing on the surface of the soil. So garlic doesn't need nearly as much water as tomatoes, but you still got to water it. If it's a summer like we had this year, you got to water it. I have rain barrels that I predominantly use, and all my plants respond to that good water. Here in Hull, we've got our water is really chlorinated, and it's not great for the plants. So I try to use as much rainwater as I can. I know some of you folks from Cohasset know what I'm talking about, bad water.
Dave, one other thing that I'd like to point out, as far as when the leaves are also starting to turn brown, you'll also notice that if you squeeze the stem, that where it starts to come out of the ground, you're going to see that it'll start to come a little soft. And that's also an indication that, kind of take one up and take a look at it, because more than likely it's most definitely done.
So this is after one of my harvests, and you can see that bulb in the middle has shed its paper. So if you harvest too late, that's what's going to happen. It sheds the paper and it's ready to re-sprout itself. You can see a lot of the other bulbs around it are fine. And sometimes one bulb will do this. Basically, you want to eat that one first. But if you wait too long and all your bulbs are like that, it's going to lose, it's not going to store very well. So one of the great things about garlic, and different types of garlic do this differently, is its storage ability. Like I eat mine sometimes 12 months a year. Like I harvest stuff in August and I've got a nice cool basement and I keep it, I hang mine in those lobster bait bags that wash up on the beach. I hang it down close to the floor in the basement and it just sits there and it's always there for me. And what Don and I have started doing, and he bought a dehydrator. So Don, you want to quick elaborate on that?
Why don't we do that when we get to the end, when we talk about your bread recipe and stuff and what we can actually make with it, because we're running out of time here.
All right, that sounds good. That sounds good. So it's important to dig up a bulb and see what it's doing. Earlier in my garlic career, I didn't really clean the bulbs that much. And it's important when you harvest that you don't go scrub them down, never like hose them down with a hose. I get a bucket of water and I just gently rinse the roots, get all the dirt off the roots, and then gently rinse the paper. And then it goes straight to the racks for drying. Now I dry mine just laying in a big pile. So that's all the dirt you want to rinse off. But you have to be gentle because you don't want to rinse that paper off either. So what I do is, this is before I lay them on. I've got like a workbench and with some like an extruded metal, and I just lay the whole plant on there out of the sun under my deck, so where it has good ventilation. So when you're drying your garlic, curing it, you want to have some good ventilation. And I let mine dry completely before I cut the plant or the roots off. Some people have different thoughts on that, but it's important to not put your garlic in the sunshine and let it start cooking, but it needs good ventilation. And if you're drying it like me under my deck and it's going to rain, I just go throw a tarp over it and then pull the tarp off because I want it to completely cure. You can see nice bounty there. This is all one type of garlic. As you harvest, you want to keep everything separate so you know what your types of garlic are. And you can see a few of them. And I'm sure, people who, the big growers, they have bulbs that are different size or ones that lose their paper, and they probably go straight to the garlic powder plant or something. A nice handful there.
So Dave, just to give you a time check, we're already at 11. So just wanted to let you know.
Well, do we have a limit?
No, we're not.
No, but let's move it along.
All right.
But we're not limited. You're not limited on our end.
You guys getting bored yet? All
If
right. So these bulbs are nice and clean, as are these, and they're just laying there drying. These are Don's bulbs. Don,
Yeah. So what I'll do is I will take them and I'll just put them in bunches, and I'll either use string or twist ties, the plastic ties there, and then I will take them and I will hang them in my workbench area because I don't have a basement, but just to hang them up and just let them dry.
Sorry.
So what you'll also see, why Dave is yelling at poor little Cosmo, who's adorable. So like I said, I'll hang these up, and I'll also make sure that I will label each string with what the strain was, so that once again, that you don't end up, mixing them up, which is very important if you want to keep your different strains separately.
This is Don's garlic.
This is Yeah, so this is from some of my garlics from this year. So what I'll do is I will do the bucket thing that Dave does. I'll lay them out for about 2 days so they can just dry out, and then I'll wrap them up and then bring them and hang them. So I just want to point out one thing. So you have different kind of strains. So the stuff that's in front of us right here, that's elephant garlic. I've never grown it before. It is a strange, interesting plant when you compare it to the rest of the garlic that is there. So that's why, Dave and I were talking, and it's kind of fun. I don't know if I'd grow it again, but it is fun to, learn something new in the different strains that are out there.
Can I interrupt and ask a question? I saw you had some braided garlic, so I didn't hear you mention hardneck versus softneck. And I don't know if did you say that and I missed it?
We both grow hardneck garlic.
Didn't I see some braided? I thought I saw some.
Yeah, but
yeah. Well, they were semi-braided. That was the first year that I tried to do that, and I don't know how to braid. I went online, and it's kind of semi-braided, shall we say? We'll just leave it at that. I don't even bother anymore. But as far as hardneck and softneck, hardnecks generally will get the scapes, and softnecks won't get the scapes. I did grow some softneck last year for the first time, and they didn't grow any scapes.
How do they reproduce it?
And if you, I'm not quite sure. And then, well, I think if you think about it, right, if you leave garlic in the ground, and as Dave was pointing out, and the paper comes off, the plant just starts to grow naturally grows again anyway. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe that's the process there.
Yeah,
but not quite sure.
They're in the same family as daffodils, so people don't dig daffodils up every year. So,
oh, that's a good point.
Right.
If you miss a bulb when harvesting, you'll see 8 shoots or 10 shoots come up, and like, oh yeah, I missed that one.
Right.
And then quickly here, once again, this was also from this year. You can actually see how big those garlic bulbs are that, Dave was talking about earlier. They were huge this year. But what I did is I rotated my crops for the first time in about 4 years. So I'd actually taken my garlic and moved it to a different part of the garden. And I really, truly think that also helped out.
Here you can see these plants are completely dried up and they're ready to be cut. I cut the roots off and I cut the stem off, and then I throw it in my little bait bags for storage. Lasts a long time. This picture just shows you will get some small bulbs sometimes. Don't panic. They actually store longer than the larger bulbs, but it's all good. This picture I took this morning. This is my garlic beds, what they look like right now. That's broccoli rabe growing in the foreground there. I got some, there's some cilantro, there's some collards and some zimina and some La Ciento kale going. So these are all nice fall crops. And before, I'll finish eating on these, and then I'll plant my garlic, turn my beds over and get ready for garlic season. So it's another great thing about growing garlic. You get kind of 2 seasons, 2 different crops out of the same beds. So yeah, very nice. So another quick thing I wanted to touch on, and Don and I have both been doing this, is growing shallots. Don, you were the championship shallot grower. Why don't you take this?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. It's the exact same process that you go through as far as planting the garlic. So it's, I don't understand why shallots are so expensive, because you'll put in one shallot, clove, and you will get at least 20 shallots out of it. It's a great plant. It's just as easy to grow. So I'd recommend that if you were going to plant some garlic, plant some shallots too, if you like shallots.
Don, do you sell a shallot seed over there?
No.
No?
Mine's already given away to people.
No, I said John, Johnny from the farm.
Oh, John, I thought you said Don.
No, I do not. We do not sell shallots, but we do have seed garlic for sale, which I put a note about in the chat. So if anybody wants to buy seed garlic, I know Donna, you had reached out to me privately, and starting this Thursday at 10 a.m., you can buy seed garlic at store.hollyhillfarm.org.
And they also have many varieties of seed garlic over there as well. So talk to them about that.
Yeah, I actually don't know how many varieties we will have, but it'll be up on the website. And there's some beautiful shallots. So keep talking.
This is these are the shallots that Don grew this year. This picture, just beautiful. And these
Yeah,
things
so those
are forever.
So yeah, they will last forever. Well, not forever, but they'll last a long time. But like I said, it's just an easy crop to grow.
Yeah, so that's just a little sidebar. So if you're growing a little garlic bed, think about getting some shallot seed. You can, you know, find them, and you're gonna love it. If you use shallots in your food, you're gonna have them. They last a year easily. They store longer than garlic, I think. All right, so we're getting towards the end here. As you can see, now we get to reap our rewards of growing.
Dave, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
So apparently I misspoke. There were shallots that were for sale. Jasmine started some from seed, and they were for sale at the plant sale last spring, and maybe they'll be for sale again. Tom wanted to know where you get the seed shallot. They can be grown from seed. I think that's probably what she did. My guess is that there's a number of seed companies where you could mail order them. You really have to order early because they do sell out.
You can actually see on these bulbs, you see the one on the right here, there's actually 2 bulbs in that paper wrapping. So you pull those apart, and that's 2 shallot plants, and each one of those will produce a handful of shallots. So you don't need very many. And like Don said, I don't know why they're so expensive, because they grow like crazy. Just as a beautiful plant as well. So I know if they sell the seed, but I don't think you actually buy seeds as, you know, when I bought them, I bought just like bulbs like this. They were smaller bulbs. And then when you get your first harvest, you can just keep growing them. Fantastic plant to have around. So anyway, this is just roasted garlic. Just cut it in half in the little roaster. And you can easily eat a whole bulb of garlic roasted like this, butter it right on toast. Some of the little cherry tomatoes roasted, just delicious. And I'm gonna give you a quick and super easy recipe here for garlic bread. So basically you take bread, like a baguette, you slice it up and you toast it. Then you get 1 clove of garlic and you just rub it on that toast, almost like a pencil eraser, and you erase the garlic right onto the bread. And it goes in really easily. It's so easy to do. So, and then you drizzle olive oil on that. It is so good. It takes like 5 minutes to make, and you have garlic toast. Really nice. I'm sure you probably all have done this, but maybe not. Super easy. So
Dave, sorry to interrupt, but there was a question in the chat. Shallots get planted in the fall, just like garlic.
Yes. Sorry, I meant to say that. Yeah, same time. You can plant them in the spring. But oh yeah, Don has something here he wants to show you, and maybe you can in the camera. It's something that we do at the end of the storage season. We take all our garlic, and Don started us doing this.
Yep. So there are a couple things. What you'll see on some of your plants, in maybe like January, you're hanging them up, and some of them might start to mold up because you can actually squeeze them if they start to get a little soft. And you don't want to waste all of that garlic that you've worked hard for. So it's like I've done a couple things over the years if that starts to happen, and that is I'll take them down and I will take out all the cloves. I'll take all the paper off, and I'll actually just put them in a mason jar, and I'll cover them with olive oil so they're fully covered, and then I'll put them in the refrigerator, and they'll last another couple months that I'll use. So that's another way to preserve them longer. And what I've also started doing is, I'm going to hold this up here, is creating my own garlic powder. So it's a really simple thing to do if you have a dehydrator. You just chop it up really fine, put it in a dehydrator. It only takes 2 or 3 days. It'll clump together because there's a lot of oil and stuff in it. You take it, put it in a coffee grinder, grind the heck out of it, and you will have your own garlic powder in these great little jars. You can get at Crate and Barrel, and they seal it very nicely.
Yeah, and that stuff stores for forever too. I mean, just in your spice rack, and it's also a great Christmas gift.
Yeah,
it's
a great
garlic.
gift.
I love giving garlic away. After I grow a lot of garlic, way more than I need, and that's really important. Actually, I forgot to mention that when you grow garlic, don't just grow enough for you to eat for the year. Grow twice as much as you need, because you're going to need garlic cloves to plant the next year, and you're going to be so happy about your garlic. You're going to want to give it to your friends as well. But the garlic powder has really been awesome. So you kind of have year-round garlic with these, with the storage of it, and then the garlic powder. You never have to buy garlic again. And by the way, if you do go to the grocery store and you see those beautiful shaped bulbs in those little mesh bags, lots of times they're from China or Mexico, and they've been sprayed with a chemical so it won't sprout. None of us want to eat chemicals, so beware. Another reason to grow your own garlic. All right. So thank you, Don. If you're at the farm, at Holly Hill Farm, and you're doing a little walk around, look for this sign. It's at our little garlic bed that we're going to plant coming up. I'm not sure when. We'll keep an eye on the weather, but John has been very nice to give us our own bed, and we used to do this garlic class in person. It's like interactive. People help us do the planting. It's really cool. Last year was really terrible weather, so we did it inside the barn, and that worked great too. They were serving roasted garlic, and I think garlic soup and stuff while we did the class. It was really a lot of fun. And it's always nice to walk around the farm anyway. So anybody got any other questions?
I'm looking at the chat real quick. You know what? If you do have another question that's maybe in the chat that I might have missed, please unmute yourself, and here's your chance to ask the champs.
Is anybody still with us?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, lots of people.
Sorry, so you were, it was Dave, you're drying your stuff outside. Don, did you say you dry your stuff indoors after you get them all cleaned up?
No, once you get them all cleaned up, you want to bring them inside. I just lay mine out just for like 2 days in the sun, just to dry it out, and then I'll bring it in. You don't want to leave it out in the sun too much, because the sun will start to cook it.
Yep. And then you hang it indoors, or you put it on top of some sort of mesh, or?
Actually, I hang mine. So I'll just like put a clump together. You don't want to clump them all together. You kind of want to layer them, and I'll either use rope or those twist ties, and then I'll hang them up from the ceiling.
Okay. And then this is a more general question, not necessarily about garlic, but in terms of raised beds, is it better to sort of put together a lot of small raised beds so you can kind of do crop rotation every year and plant different stuff around, or does that not matter as much and it's better to just use the space to have one large raised bed and till the soil appropriately?
Both of us have multiple raised beds. I think I have 4, and I'm going to build another one. And Don kind of made permanent raised beds out of those beautiful blocks.
Yeah. So I have like 3 sections, and like I said, I had rotated the garlic for the first time in like 4 years. I should have done it earlier. Yeah, I would totally recommend you rotating your crops. So if you have space to have additional ones, absolutely go for it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
What's great about the raised bed is you can kind of tailor it to what space you have available as well. So it's nice, you know. Great. Well, it's been really fun. I think next year, if we do hopefully we won't have to do the Zoom version, but maybe we will want to. You know, we're going to have some better photos. And JP, thank you for your help. And
yes, thank you, JP.
You're welcome.
There's at least one person who would like to help you. So I don't know if socially distanced masked garlic planting can happen, but if anybody is interested in helping Don and Dave plant the garlic in their special bed, my suggestion would be to email John, Johnny Belber, John, Jon, at hollyhillfarm.org, and he can arrange that with you guys if you're comfortable with that.
Well, we're not really sure when we're going to do it because Don and I are both busy people too. So it's not something we can really plan ahead. But we like to do it on a nice day. We like to have a nice little day over there on the farm. Pack a lunch, picnic basket, and but we'll see. Let me talk to Don about that and JP, and we'll come up with a plan.
Okay. So I'm just going to say then in closing, if anybody else has questions, you can email John at hollyhillfarm.org. And if, I don't know if Dave and Don, if you guys want to be looped in for emails as a resource in the future, if you're willing to answer questions, you can decide. You can let me know about that. But I'm just going to thank everybody for coming today. There's a couple of people who put in the chat that they like this format. At least one person with a toddler is happy that they were able to attend. And so thank you for attending and supporting Holly Hill Farm. And like I said before, seed garlic will be for sale starting this Thursday at store.hollyhillfarm.org. And you can order seed garlic there on Thursday, from Thursday at 10 till Friday at noon. I believe that's what the current system is. And then you do a drive-by pickup at the farm on Saturday.
And I also recommend you contact those folks about buying some of their wonderful compost. John bought some to me yesterday, and it's just fantastic. It's a completely organic compost. You got to watch out for stuff these days. And the end of W Street in Hull, come and take as much seaweed as you want. It's there. It's there right now. Bring buckets and barrels or whatever you want. You can pull right up to the end of W Street or X Street and have at it.
So we all
just one last thing, just as far as seaweed, because we didn't mention this, Dave. There tends to be lots of, we all know how polluted our oceans are. And so there tends to be, rope and plastic. So make sure that you pick all of that stuff out before you put it into your garden.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The stuff from the lobstermen, they throw everything overboard. That's a whole nother topic. But
Holly Hill sells Neptune's Harvest fish emulsion. So if you're wanting to soak your bulbs before planting, you can do that. And then you'll have it for next spring. It lasts, it'll last over the winter. I don't think it has an expiration date on it.
Grow garlic. It's an art form.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
Thank you all very much for attending.
All right. Thank you, Jazz.
Great job.
Thank you.
Good job, Dave.